Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Stan, and I'm back again to talk about some more Magic the Gathering old school killer decks. Now, the deck that I'm going to talk about this time is the Titania Balance deck. And this is actually the third most dominating deck of the old school. Now, the Titania Balance deck was a Type 1/Classic deck from fall of 94 to about spring of 95. The Titania Balance deck was a very unique deck that would either beat your opponent permission deck style, locking them out with the Winter Orb Icy Manipulator combo or the Howling Mine Relic Barrier combo. And then it would flip the script on you by you dropping the Titania Song and turning your deck into a massive Weenie Horde deck. Alright, let's talk a little bit about the functionality. Just like with the Rack Balance deck, this deck kind of revolves around the balance. With all the cheap artifacts that you're able to dump out of your hand quick, fast, and in a hurry, it didn't really take a long time for you to set up the Howling Mine Relic Barrier combo. As a lot of you veterans know, the Howling Mine allows you to basically draw extra cards your turn. Now, the Relic Barrier pretty much taps a target artifact. So when you use this, you're pretty much able to make sure that you get all the cards that you need, but stop your opponent from getting them. Because when it's on his turn, all you have to do is use the Relic Barrier and tap the Howling Mine. Now, if you keep doing that, pretty soon you'll be able to outdraw your opponent like maybe 3 or 4 cards to his 1. After that, it's just a matter of time before you get the Winter Orb Icy Manipulator, and you're able to set up one of the most powerful combos ever conceived back in the day, the Winter Orb Icy Manipulator lock. Alright, explaining that combo, the Winter Orb says that no player may untap more than 1 land during their untap phase. The Icy Manipulator allows you to pretty much tap any target land, creature, or artifact. So let's say your opponent pretty much just taps all of his land. With the Winter Orb in play, he can only untap 1 per turn. But since you also have an Icy Manipulator, he won't get to access that land either, because all you have to do is just switch on the Icy and tap that land as well. This combo has proven to be a thorn in a lot of people's sides, especially people who play control decks that are very heavily mana intensive. Now, any creatures your opponent somehow manages to get out and play will pretty much be flushed out by the balances. And since usually you won't have any more than 1 or 2 lands in play, the balances will act as an Armageddon as well, as you know. The secondary function of this deck is probably the coolest thing about it, the Titania Song. You pretty much drop the Titania Song and it's game over, because you'll turn all of those artifacts into creatures. And if you did all the things that I said previously, you won't have to worry about your opponent have any defenses stopping, and you'll pretty much be able to just stomp him in 1 attack. Now, in a time where land destruction and permission decks were all the rage, back in the day at least, the Titania Balance deck was easily able to deny any player both. It always beat land destruction at its own game because it was just simply too fucking fast. And with the permission deck's ability to lock down anything, it pretty much beat them too. Now, Abyss decks with their artifact creatures were also very popular at that time, but the Relic Barriers brought them to a screeching, grinding halt. Now, once I get the recipe for an Abyss deck, I'll go back and I'll tell you guys a little bit more about it. Now, I have to say, it was because of decks like this that the Balance was at one time the most powerful card you could ever possess. Thus, it had to be restricted in certain venues. At least back in the day it was. Now, the basic principles of this deck kind of got revamped and modified to another deck archetype known as the Prison. And I don't have the recipe for the Prison either. But as soon as I get the recipe for the Prison archetype, I'll let you guys know about that too. Talking a little bit about the weaknesses of this deck. If you notice with this deck, it has pretty much 50% or more artifacts involved in it. If you're going up against somebody who's playing a red blitz deck who has Shatterstorm, Shatters, and other kind of cards that do massive damage to artifacts, you're going to have to be very careful because that could easily slow your ass down. Some of your sources for mana are in the artifacts that you will probably be using when you drop the Titania song. This is actually kind of bad because since they have no casting cost, as soon as you drop the Titania song, they die. Any creature that has a 0 toughness, 0 power is automatically going to get sent to the graveyard. Just be sure when you drop the Titania song, your opponent is wide open. Odds are when you're playing with this kind of deck strategy, he will be. Using the balances to pretty much get rid of all his lands and using the Howling Mine Relic Barrier combo to make sure that he doesn't get any more resources coming in faster than you do. This should be a no-brainer. Alright guys, that's pretty much all I got to speak about on this deck. This was the Titania Balance deck, and this was the third most dominating deck of the old school. And as always, I'd like to give a shout out to all the sources for me finding the material. I'd like to give a shout out to all my fans. And I also like to give a shout out to you for watching. Please vote, comment, or subscribe. Anyway, I'm Stan, and that's all for now.